Imagine trying to explain the universe without touching a single piece of equipment. No laboratory, no telescope, no supercomputer, just your mind. It sounds impossible, yet one man managed to reshape humanity's understanding of reality using little more than imagination. His name was Albert Einstein. When most people hear the word genius, they imagine someone born with a magical brain, a person whose intelligence is simply beyond everyone else's. But Einstein himself rejected that idea. He didn't believe his greatest strength was intelligence. He believed it was curiosity. While others accepted the world as it appeared, Einstein couldn't stop asking questions that most people ignored. What is light? What is time? What is space? Why does gravity exist? These weren't questions he asked because someone assigned them as homework. They were questions that refused to leave his mind. As a child, he became fascinated by something as ordinary as a compass. No matter how he turned it, the needle always pointed north. He couldn't see the force controlling it, yet it was undeniably there. That tiny mystery convinced him that reality was filled with invisible rules waiting to be discovered. Years later, instead of rushing into experiments, Einstein did something unusual. He imagined them. He would close his eyes and build entire universes inside his head. He asked himself impossible questions. What would happen if I could ride alongside a beam of light? What would I see? Would light freeze beside me? That single thought experiment eventually helped lead to one of the greatest scientific revolutions in history. It challenged centuries of assumptions and transformed our understanding of space and time forever. Einstein wasn't escaping reality through imagination. He was exploring it. His mind worked like a laboratory where every idea was tested before a single equation was written. Perhaps that's the real lesson hidden behind his genius. He didn't memorize more facts than everyone else. He questioned more assumptions than everyone else. The world often rewards people who have answers. Einstein became extraordinary because he refused to stop asking better questions. Maybe that's why his legacy isn't just the theory of relativity. It's a way of thinking, a reminder that the biggest discoveries rarely begin with certainty. They begin with curiosity. Curiosity alone, however, doesn't explain Einstein. Millions of people are curious. Children ask thousands of questions every year, yet very few grow up to change the world. Einstein possessed something even more unusual. He had the ability to remain with a question long after everyone else had given up. Most of us are uncomfortable with uncertainty. When we don't understand something, we search for an answer, memorize it, and move on. He allowed questions to stay alive inside his mind for years. He believed that the longer you lived with a problem, the more likely you were to discover something everyone else had overlooked. One of his greatest strengths was something he called a thought experiment. Instead of building machines or running expensive laboratory tests, Einstein built entire universes inside his imagination. He would mentally create impossible situations and then ask a simple question: what would happen? Imagine chasing a beam of light. If you could somehow run at exactly the speed of light, would the light appear frozen beside you? Would it stop moving? Or is such a thing impossible? At first, this sounds like a question from science fiction, but Einstein refused to dismiss it simply because it sounded absurd. He followed the idea wherever logic led him. Years later, that single question became one of the foundations of the theory of relativity, forever changing humanity's understanding of space and time. This reveals something remarkable about the way Einstein thought. He didn't begin with answers. He began with imagination. Most people believe imagination belongs to artists, writers, and filmmakers. Einstein believed it belonged to scientists just as much. In fact, he once suggested that imagination could be more important than knowledge, because knowledge is limited to what we already know, while imagination allows us to explore what no one has discovered yet. That doesn't mean facts were unimportant. Einstein mastered mathematics and physics, but he used them as tools rather than destinations. His ideas came first. The equations came afterward. This is perhaps one of the biggest misconceptions about genius. We often imagine extraordinary thinkers as walking encyclopedias who simply know more facts than everyone else. But history tells a different story. The greatest breakthroughs rarely happen because someone memorized one more formula. They happened because someone looked at an old problem from an entirely new perspective. Einstein trained himself to question assumptions that everyone else accepted without hesitation. People believed time flowed the same for everyone. He asked, what if it doesn't? People believed gravity was simply a force pulling objects together. He asked, what if gravity is something completely different? Those questions sounded almost ridiculous at first, yet they led to discoveries that continue to shape modern physics today. The lesson isn't that you need to become another Einstein. It's that extraordinary thinking often begins with ordinary questions asked with extraordinary persistence. The next revolutionary idea doesn't always belong to the smartest person in the room. Sometimes it belongs to the person who refuses to stop asking why. There's another reason Einstein's thinking was so powerful, and it's something that almost anyone can practice. He had an unusual relationship with simplicity. When a problem became more complicated, most people responded by adding more details, more equations, or explanations. Einstein often moved in the opposite direction. He stripped problems down until only their most essential pieces remained. He believed that if you truly understand something, you should be able to explain it in a way that reveals its core idea, rather than hiding behind complexity. Think about how children learn. Before they know formulas or technical language, they understand the world through simple ideas. Einstein never completely lost that ability. He could look at incredibly complex questions with the curiosity of a child, while analyzing them with the discipline of a scientist. This way of thinking gave him an enormous advantage. Instead of asking, how does this complicated system work? He asked, what is the simplest version of this problem? That simple question often uncovered answers that everyone else had missed. But simplicity wasn't enough. Einstein also possessed something incredibly rare in today's world: patience. His greatest discoveries didn't appear overnight. The theory of special relativity took years of thought. General relativity demanded nearly a decade of relentless work, mistakes, revisions, and frustration before it finally came together. Imagine spending 10 years chasing an idea without knowing whether it would ever work. Most people would have quit long before reaching the finish line. Einstein didn't. He understood that breakthrough ideas aren't born in moments of inspiration alone. They emerge from thousands of hours spent thinking, doubting, correcting, and trying again. This challenge is one of the biggest myths about genius. We often imagine brilliant people waking up with revolutionary ideas, as if inspiration simply appears out of nowhere. Reality is far less magical. Einstein's mind wasn't constantly producing answers. It was constantly producing questions, possibilities, and experiments that existed only in his imagination. Most of those ideas probably went nowhere, but he wasn't afraid of that. He knew that discovering what doesn't work is often part of discovering what does. Perhaps that's why he seemed comfortable with uncertainty. While many people fear being wrong, Einstein treated being wrong as information. Every failed idea narrowed the path toward a better one. That mindset is just as valuable today as it was a century ago. Whether you're building a business, learning to code, writing a book, or trying to understand yourself, progress rarely comes from waiting for perfect certainty. It comes from having the courage to think deeply, test your ideas, and accept that mistakes are not the opposite of intelligence. They are often evidence that real thinking is taking place. Einstein didn't become extraordinary because he avoided failure. He became extraordinary because he refused to let uncertainty stop his curiosity. If there is one lesson that connects everything Einstein ever accomplished, it is this: he never allowed the limits of the present to define the possibilities of the future. When everyone around him believed they understood the universe, he assumed there was still something missing. That attitude is surprisingly rare. Most of us inherit our view of reality from teachers, books, society, and the people around us. We accept countless ideas simply because they've always been accepted. We rarely stop to ask whether those ideas are actually true. Einstein did, not because he enjoyed disagreeing with people, but because he believed nature itself was the final authority, not tradition, not reputation, and not popular opinion. This is what separated him from countless intelligent people of his time. He wasn't trying to prove himself right. He was trying to discover what was true. That difference matters. When your goal is to be right, every disagreement feels like a threat. When your goal is to find the truth, every disagreement becomes an opportunity to learn. Einstein changed his own ideas whenever evidence demanded it. He understood that intelligence isn't measured by how stubbornly you defend your beliefs, but by how willingly you improve them. Perhaps that's the greatest misunderstanding about genius. People think genius is a destination, as if some people are simply born on a higher level than everyone else. But Einstein's life suggests something different. Genius is often a process of observing more carefully, questioning more deeply, imagining more freely, thinking longer than everyone else, and never becoming satisfied with easy answers. The world remembers Einstein because of relativity. But perhaps his greatest contribution wasn't a scientific theory. It was a way of approaching reality itself. A reminder that every discovery begins with a question that most people are too busy to ask. The next great breakthrough in science, technology, philosophy, or even your own life may not begin with extraordinary intelligence. It may begin with a simple decision.